When you have a system where power and financial resources are concentrated in the hands of a few, an opportunity, economic opportunity, scholarships, contracts are divvied out by a handful of persons based on their perception of where you
But
stand.
that is the consequence of your silence.
No, I think
Yes.
that is a result.
No, it's
silence is
the two things.
silence
It's
is
the left.
imposed.
It's a
Silence
left
is
hand.
imposed on
No, silence is
persons by
accepted.
that fear.
No, silence is accepted. Silence becomes the default
Perhaps-
that we learn to
Perhaps
live
some people are comfortable enough in their financial circumstance that they are able to speak. But if I know that the scholarship for my child to Cuba or to Morocco may be compromised if I
with. Well, then you
address-
must live with the consequences of your silence.
This podcast has always been about the conversations we owe ourselves as a people, the honest ones, the difficult ones, the ones that move us forward. And the truth we must begin with today is by many measures, we are making progress as a country. But this progress has been too slow and too uneven for people as gifted and capable as we are. And there is a reason for that, and we must have the courage to name it. We have become too divided as a society, at times even tribal. We have learned to retreat into camps. We mistake frank conversations and honesty as personal attacks, and we often judge an idea not on its merit, but on the color of the hand that extends it. In such a climate, good ideas wither, good people withdraw, and the nation marks time when it ought to be marching ahead. I have come to believe that the way through is not louder argument, but better conversation. During my time in the Pacific, I encountered a tradition the islanders called Talanoa, an open, honest, and blameless conversation in which people share their stories, their truths, listen without defensiveness, and search together for solutions. It is how the communities confront their hardest problems. It is, I believe, something we would do well to adopt here at home. And so, to help us begin this kind of conversation, we are joined today by a true Renaissance man, an economist and a poet, a businessman and a public servant, a builder of institutions and a shaper of culture, a man whose experiences span the boardroom, the Senate floor, the world's multilateral halls, and carnival, and whose insights can help us confront and engage the challenges and opportunities now before us as a country. Today, we are pleased to have Adrian Augier as our guest on the 1461 podcast. Welcome to the 1461 podcast.
The 1461 podcast is brought to you by Bryson Company Limited in partnership with IBS, Harbor Club, Tropical Solar, and 1461 Enterprise, distributors of the world's best coffee.
Welcome to another episode of the 1461 podcast. We have a rather special guest today, a leader, a shaper, a Renaissance man, someone who has made an important contribution to many facets of Saint Lucian life, in culture, in business, in policy making. We're pleased to have with us today Mr. Adrian Augier. Welcome, Adrian.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. I think it's fair to start with the beginning. I typically start our shows with an original story. Who are you? Where you've come from? what brings you here today? So let's start at the beginning. Saint Lucians, many of us know of Adrian Augier, but do we truly know Adrian Augier? So would you like to share with us from the top what happened after 1959 in London?
Well, of course, I don't remember all of it myself, but I do know my dad was studying in England, and my mom went up and met him there, as many young couples did in those days. And he was clearly not entirely engaged with his studies because, lo and behold, I was born. But anyhow, I lived there for 3 years, none of which I remember. But I think it's a sort of typical Caribbean story, that parents migrate temporarily, in our case, for better opportunities. Child is born abroad, and then came down from England at age 3 and moved into the house in Pave where I lived most of my life, and which my mother had lived most of her life in, and which she bought from her siblings when her mother died. So Pave was home. It was a wonderful home, and I had the privilege of growing up with both parents in what was a wonderful neighborhood, 3 minutes up from the center of the city. We would run down Pave and run back up. At the drop of a hat, we used to walk to the RC Boys School on a morning. We would walk home at lunchtime and walk back down at 1 o'clock to go to the second half of school, walk home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's been home. It's been a wonderful upbringing in a wonderful country. And then because we were so centrally located, you could walk to VT Beach, cross the airport, walk back, and always with parents such as I had, always rooted in the very mainstream of the country, a developing country, a young country where there was a lot of stuff that needed to be done. And then my father was a road engineer, so we knew the country as it was evolving. He was working on roads in Sarot and on the East Coast and in Labrie, and places like that were like our extended turf, so to speak. And we knew a lot of people also, regular folks up and down the country. And he knew people everywhere because he was a builder of roads and bridges. And my first major collection of poetry, I consider it, it's called Bridge Maker. It's a tribute. It's a tribute to him, and also the bridge of words that we build, between ourselves, among ourselves, as we experience our country, the growth of Saint Lucia. And so I guess I've always been that person concerned about people and actual lives and real existences and opportunity for people who are trying to better themselves and work their way up through education or employment to something better, something greater for themselves, for their kids, their next generations, that sort of thing. That's the Saint Lucia that continues to inspire me. That we are a complex people. We have aspirations, we have needs, we have goals, we have frustrations. And your introduction kind of touches on that we must not be afraid to have the difficult conversations which address the frustrations to that progress. We have not arrived. We are not at our destination. We have a lot of stuff still to be done. And unless we pull the energies together, we're not going to achieve what we should as a country, as a nation, as people in the world. So that's my background. That's my orientation.
Fascinating. I want to go back a little bit to your dad and your mom. You, of course, are very accomplished, many different spheres. And of course, you would look back at your early childhood and perhaps draw a line between where you are and those experiences you had. those learnings that you had,
Mm-hmm.
those teachings that you had. Do you see who you are now implanted in your youth, in your upbringing, in your father and your mother?
Oh, absolutely.
What were they and how did they impact on your journey?
My parents were Saint Lucian to the core. I think that's probably the first thing, that they were of this
Tell
place.
us names, give us the names and tell me who they were.
Leonard Michael Augier, my father. My mom was Arlette Augier, Nay Pitkin, connections in Labrie, connections in the South generally. My mother's people came up from Soufriere. My father's people were mostly town people, Lastic Hill. My grandmother lived on Miku Street. My mother's stepmother lived around the corner on High Street.
So fundamentally Saint Lucians at the core.
Fundamentally.
And
Saint
how
Lucian.
did your father and your mother influence your journey?
Apart from their connections with the cultural life of the country, which is a whole program in itself, I think their values were obvious to us very early in life. My father was a hard worker. He was sitting at the dining room table at 6 o'clock almost every morning, doing his paperwork before going to office, where he had a very demanding job as a chief engineer, and later working with the Crown Agents, specifically on the East Coast Road project, and then after that on the whole feeder roads project. So we knew what diligence looked like. We knew what principle looked like. We knew what commitment looked like from my father. And he took his work extremely seriously. And that whole process of building from nothing, from scratch, from whatever was there, the idea that we were transforming a landscape into something more substantive, more functional, more useful, more accessible. The Feeder Road project was about empowering banana farmers to get their goods to the port, get their fruit to the port. Those were fundamental things, in my view anyway. My mom, on the other hand, was a woman, I think, in advance of her time in terms of her own thinking. And her only regret, I think, was that she didn't get to go to university. In those days, they didn't really send girls to university. And I think she felt that need for most of her life. So when I went to university, I had the privilege of going to university, supported by my parents, for example.
I see you in the University of Western Ontario.
Western Ontario. There was no way that I could come home with bad grades. You know what I'm saying? Because it seemed to me like a huge sacrifice that they were making. And it was unconditional. We will get you through school. And if I wanted to do a PhD, they would have funded it. They would have made whatever arrangement they had to make. Not easily, but it was a commitment that we will see you through school. And so my responsibility was to go to school, work hard, study, go to class on those cold winter mornings, get your butt out of bed and go do what you have to do. There's nothing like goofing off on an assignment or not completing homework or a task. That sort of diligence was inbred.
So you definitely made them proud. And after the break, we will go into a little more detail about your life as a civil servant, a poet, a man of many talents, a Renaissance man. See you after the break.
Coming up after the break, more with our guest.
As a building contractor, the success of my projects depends on the quality of materials and the reliability of my suppliers. Bryson Company has consistently provided high-grade roofing and steel products that meet the standards required for both residential and commercial work. The customer service is excellent. Orders are processed efficiently and delivery is always timely. I appreciate their professionalism and commitment to quality, which makes them a trusted partner in my business.
To experience the benefits of a tropical solar water heating system, call 453-1868 in Castries or 454-6344 in Vieux-Fort.
Welcome back. Now, Adrian, I looked through your CV and I must say it's quite impressive. You are an economist, you are a poet, you have led different business organizations, you're a senator, international civil servant, member of many different bodies and organizations. And you have accomplished much in those various endeavors. Do you sometimes wonder whether you could have or should have targeted one of those many different pursuits, or are you happy with the body of work that you've produced?
I think that's a very valid question. And I have asked myself whether or not, like a Derek Walcott, for example, I should have stuck to one thing and been extremely, extremely good at it, as he was. And I mean, he's one of my mentors, clearly. But I have no regrets about the broadness of my experience or my life or my work. I think it has offered me a unique vision, public sector, private sector, high, low, medium. I am comfortable anywhere in the world. I'm comfortable anywhere in my country. I engage with people very happily and genuinely, which I think is a great honor and a great gift. And so, no, I'm very happy with my multifaceted self. It's too late to change anyway, and I don't do regret and I don't do guilt. So, so you make the most of what life.
I think it's
gives
a valid answer, because I think if you look at every single pursuit
Yes.
in Carnival,
Yes.
you've had a very successful band. In business, you've done very well. You are known as and seen as one of the thought leaders in this country. So I think having that multidisciplinary approach, some of us, like myself, perhaps would not be well suited, but I think you should be quite pleased that you've been able to contribute to such a diverse range of pursuits.
I think it's one of the great things about living in a country like ours, that you have access to making contributions in many areas. I think what underlies it is the commitment we spoke about to hard work, to doing things properly, to going the extra mile, to getting your butt out of bed and doing what is necessary, because that's what the task requires if it's going to be fulfilling, if it's going to be meaningful. It takes work. And I remember saying to a young student who came across to our workshop not so long ago that anything that's going to be done well requires commitment. It requires hard work. I mean, and if you're not prepared to put that in, then you will amount to nothing. And I heard myself saying this and wondered, is that a fair statement to throw at a 14, 15-year-old student? And I thought to myself, yes, it's reality that young people need to understand that this, give me that, I'll take this, I'll take that, without the necessary investment of time and energy and hard work, is a necessary statement that we need to address at a national level. You don't get excellence, you don't get better, you don't grow, you don't develop unless you invest the time and the effort and the commitment and the research and all the rest of it that it takes. So kind of tying that back to your question, it's the same person, it's the same dedication, it's the same skills that if you're going to do it well.
But in the society that we currently live, there is a sense that because of historical antecedent, because of our past, that everyone is entitled, that the rewards for hard work should be diffused and distributed equitably, not based on person's efforts. Have we become a lazy society?
I think we've become an unambitious society. I wouldn't necessarily say lazy, because I've seen great effort at all sorts of levels, and I've seen people who are exemplars at a multitude of tasks. And when I think about, for example, the hours spent by regular, everyday people in my mass camp up to 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, every night for 4 months, I don't think we're a lazy people. What we have become is somewhat unambitious, or our ambitions have become less well defined. And the road to success, the road to excellence, the road to exceptionalism has become a little blurry. And so our sense of history has become equally blurry, which is to say, how did we get here? How did we achieve whatever it is we achieved? And you mentioned in your introduction, people as gifted as us, people as capable of as us. That is the benchmark, our own capability, our own capacity to be something beyond ordinary. That's what I think we need to explore fundamentally right now.
So what has happened? The 70s were a period of hope. Many of the region, or much of the region, was going through this break with colonial attachments. The 80s were a time of growth and expectation. We had green gold. The 90s, of course, similarly, there was ambition, there was opportunity, there was hope. What has happened now? And why have we lost that sense of ambition, that sense of urgency, that sense of what we can be?
I think the preoccupation with growth, advancement, development, the really evolution of our nations into something bigger and brighter and better, that agenda got diluted somewhere in the 80s, maybe with Thatcherism and the abandonment of even the social consciousness, that growth is a communal effort, that it is not a spontaneous result of the market. It is something that has to be conscientiously planned out. It has to be expected. It has to be demanded. It has to be initiated consciously, that development is not an accidental dividend of some larger capitalist process, that the capitalist process will not deliver equitable development to people like us, people with our colored skin, people with our post-colonial, post-independence background. It is not an accidental dividend. It has to be a deliberate, planned thing. We gave that up. We gave that determination up somewhere in the 80s. It was an easy time in terms of money, as you mentioned, and the development world kind of shifted away from a conscious-led post-war socially conscious movement, which concerned itself with the betterment of people who had not had privilege. We gave that up, and in the Caribbean, even today, we've lost, I think, track of the fact that we are still on a continuum, that we're still on a path, and there's a lot of stuff still to be done. But if you want to sort of segue from the economic and political dimensions of that, I think our fundamental mistake in the Caribbean is that we stopped teaching history and we stopped teaching literature, and our personal histories, our personal triumphs, our communal achievements are contained in our history and in our literature, and we made that optional. So we became a people who are not sufficiently conscious of the path traveled.
But can't history become a trap of what we see ourselves as our master status? This is who we are, and enslaved people, people who are locked in a post-colonial or colonial period, and that in itself really frames our own expectations of ourselves.
I disagree fundamentally. I think that you're defining history as a thing of the past, forgive the pun. I am defining history as the foundation of the present, you must have an understanding of where you have come from. It's the only way you are going to have a sense of achievement. And the great tragedy is that our young people today believe that this always was, that this that they see now always was. They do not know that the struggles of their grandparents. They simply do not know them. They've not been, they've not sat with the elders. If you want to, that is history too. They have not sat with the elders, and when they do, they're on their cell phones and their tablets. And it used to be Game Boys before that, and it used to be PlayStations before that. And that is a huge conversation that has to take place, how technology has separated us from our generations. And it is interesting that the Swedes and the Nordics have now reassessed the role of the digital devices in education. They have come to the conclusion that it has not worked. And they're going back to fundamental issues of how you create curiosity in children. We've lost the curiosity even about ourselves. And the worst danger is this business of believing that this always was. Well, I remember when this road was hog plums and pig pens, you know, and when we moved our house in 1969 from Pave to Bois d'Orange, there was nothing out here. And to believe that this always was is to believe also that it has nowhere more to go. And it reminds me of the Derek Walcott statement that, roughly paraphrased, says, where there is nothing, there is everything to be built. So we have lost that sense of a continuum of our own development. And I think that's where the Caribbean is right now.
But Adrian, I have to challenge that as well, because whilst having a deep understanding of who we were as a people and the journey that we've been on, I get a sense though that history is now a tool for blaming the past for the circumstances of the present. And what I mean by that is, it is that group of people who are responsible for your plight. It is this set of people who are responsible for the lack of water. It is that cohort of people who are responsible for social injustice and inequities. So in a way, I think it could be said that we are also anchored by our past, that we have not made progress because of colonialism. We have not made progress because of slavery. You are poor because this or that government was in power and didn't do this and that. So history, of course, is important, but don't you also see that sometimes we held back by those persons who use history to absolve themselves of current responsibilities?
No, I don't think so at all. I think that understanding the road traveled is a question of empowerment. It's a question of information. It is a business of deciding how much the agenda has changed or not since whenever. It is fundamental to your understanding of yourself as to who you are, what journey you have already completed, what generations before you have triumphed over. Because I'm not into the woe is me philosophy. We have triumphed, and this is the perspective from which we should be teaching our history if we're involved in the business of nation building, that we have triumphed over some of the worst adversity faced by any people, any civilization ever. And it is the triumph that we must celebrate as the fundamental foundation of what we are going to become, where we are going to journey to. The blame thingy, which has overtones of reparations and so forth, I'm not particularly interested in.
What do you think of reparations?
Well, I think we should make it a legal battle and a financial battle and get as much of the resources as we possibly can that we consider available to us. Due to us is a different philosophical question. But if there is money available to us which we can access and get our hands on, then I think, let's have the conversation. Let's go for the juggler as far as I'm concerned. But I am 48% West African and 48% Western European in my DNA. What am I supposed to do? Be at war with half of myself? No, but if there's resources available for future development, then let's get it. And let's deploy it. Let's deploy it sensibly.
I fear that reparations would set us even further back. We live in an entitled society. The merit and value of hard work is now being displaced by expecting that public goods and governments and persons would take care of our essential needs.
But our reality does not confirm that. People may have that expectation, but our reality does not confirm that. Poverty is not going away. Ignorance is not going away. Poor health is not going away.
Do you think that money would change that?
I think resources would change that.
Well, after the break, we will speak about resources for water, for education, and for infrastructure. See you after the break.
Coming up after the break, more with our guest.
Yo, Caliph, yeah. Kiba your bad son.
Kiba, how you bad?
Y'all a skinny thought, give me and a tell me fi pokey. She a tell me say fi grab it throat and choke it.
She a send picture and a send me emoji. Give me good brain, a biggie or a trophy.
Cardi dan dada, Louis V shirt and a new bank robber. We a do it first and the whole of them a follow. Girl them a twerk and I say them want hammer.
Girl, them a bubble and a wine and cut.
So me a press gas, me no try bust.
Let's stick up for no day. You know what, man? No nigga wanna day. No one soft. Let's stick up for no day. Aye, we have a bad bite. We ain't nobody sick about the best ride. But we go fuck up in a bent paradise. Your pop so tight and your pop paradise. But come and be on vice and a guy and a
Si on va content, c'est la même. Rien à foutre, vas-y par la main. So a yo bof, yo ka fait moins la peine. So ka bon moins la flemme, so ka soucier pour ni la fame. C'est nous qui boss. Oui, dis-moi, même police peut pas stop. Pas fait faute, nous qui n'y ça sous contrôle. Even nous, ça qu'a grillé, nous toujours bien habillés. L'autre 18 carats qu'a brillé. C'est nous qui boss. Oui, dis-moi, même police peut pas stop. Pas fait faute, nous qui n'y ça sous contrôle. Even nous, ça qu'a grillé, nous toujours bien habillés. L'autre 18 carats qu'a brillé.
C'est le temps, nous trois à l'aise. Nous sommes dehors ce soir, tonight we outside.
I have been using water pumps for many, many years, both at my commercial properties, residential properties. And one of the issues I've always had is reliability, high cost of maintenance. One of the major issues is if there's no water in the pump keep running and the pump would shut down or even burn in some cases. I did some research and came across the Pedrello from Bryson Company. I installed one of them on a trial and found it to be very reliable, very efficient. Cost was great as well. And most of all, it was 100% built in Italian. We know the Italian product is one of the best. I stuck with it. If you're looking for a high performance, great quality pump, look no further than the Pedrello pump from Bryson Company. You simply cannot go wrong.
Welcome back. So we've taken the plane up to 60,000 feet. Let's go back down to hover over the ground. Let's take a helicopter view of Saint Lucia, 2026. We still have challenges with the water. We have challenges with electricity from time to time. We have challenges with infrastructure. We have challenges with healthcare. We're seeing cracks in the judiciary. Recently, we had a major outage in telecommunications. The level of crime is not what we want it to be. How do we move forward? How do we address those complex challenges? Who is to be blamed for that? Where we are? How do we move forward?
Well, it's pointless to blame anybody but ourselves. We have been in charge of this country. We collectively have been in charge of this country for the last 50 years. Okay? If anything is wrong, it's a collective responsibility. What we have not had in recent history is continuity. And we have to address the fact that for the first time in 25 years, we've actually had the same government return, the same party return to power. That flip-flop, that up and down, that growth pattern, which reflects that, the growth rate reflects that flip-flopping between political extremes for the last 20, 25 years. That has probably been the single most debilitating factor in our development for the last 2.5 decades. Who do we blame for that? nobody but ourselves. We have not matured our democracy as a country. We have not matured our democracy. The role of the media, the role of the private sector, the role of the labor unions, the role of the church have all been diluted down to a sort of mediocre comfort level where we have abandoned the rigors of leadership. I spoke to 4 contenders for the King of the Bands competition at my mass camp a few nights ago. And I said to them, I say, only Adrian had opened his mouth and talking about what is wrong and what needs to be fixed and what could be better. I say, none of you all will say anything.
Why?
Why? Because people are going to be victimized, I'm told. And it's like, Adrian is okay, he can afford to speak. But maybe Adrian is okay because he speaks.
But
and this is a serious problem, that we will know what needs to be fixed. We will know what needs to be done, and we will not say it publicly. We'll have the meeting after the meeting.
So the winner takes all outcomes of an election.
Yes.
They have consequences.
Yes. It's not healthy.
How do we fix that, Adrian? We had this discussion about 10 years ago about constitutional reform.
Yes.
To ensure that the executive and the the executive and the legislative branches, perhaps there's a separation. Mm-hmm. But when you have such an enormous concentration of power in the executive.
Yes, and let's not pretend that that's a 16-1 problem. That problem has been evolving for decades. The fact that the constituent organizations of the democracy, forget about the political parties. Let's talk about why the private sector doesn't say anything. Let's talk about yes.
Because they expect if they say something, perhaps they will not get.
But if
the
they don't say anything, who will? This is the question.
The church. Why is the church running away from its responsibility?
Well, you tell me. But the problem is that there is a collective diminution of social responsibility across our societies.
But it's also a hypocrisy as well.
It is.
Because
it's a comfort.
Some organizations, let's say one that you've been loosely affiliated with, which at certain times they would be shouting and protesting about.
I don't know which one you're talking about.
Whether it be Cabot or whether it be Dolphin Parks or whatever, they'll be shouting and protesting, talking about patrimony and even more egregious propositions or proposals are made at certain times which are not convenient, and all of them take mumu tablets.
Yes.
So what is this about? If it is not about what is right for the country, it should be right for the country at all times, not when it's convenient. I
agree with you, and therefore I'm glad that you're doing this sort of program where you can have these difficult conversations. But we have to first admit that it is not a problem that is unique to any one organization. The business of not rocking the boat, the business of not speaking the truth, the business of not addressing power, the business of not having difficult conversations has become a national pastime. And there were days when organizations had a certain integrity and felt that out of the democratic and legitimate constitution, as organizations, they could speak intelligently to each other and hold positions which are differing in terms of perspective, opinion, whatever. That's what we have lost. Part of it has to do with the politics. Part of it has to do with the belief among parties that they can only put Stephen there. If Stephen is our man, we put him there. We don't put somebody there who is objective. And this has been the case with a lot of statutory boards, for example, where you don't put people there who bring professional expertise and maybe a bit of contention to the table. You put people who are going to agree with you. And this has diluted, I think, the strength of our democracy and the progress of our nation, because we don't have contending views. And the only way you get an arbitrated result, the only way you get a result which is centrist, if you want to put it that way, and less biased, is by having contending views. but the richness of the discourse has been avoided.
But
difficult conversations have been avoided.
Let's challenge that,
Yes.
because someone who is as versed as you, as diverse in terms of your own understandings, we frequently benefit from public dialogue or conversations. It's the same voices, it's the same people, many of whom have a vested interest in outcomes who speak. Those people who have the wisdom, the authority, the experience, where are they? In fact, I would even challenge us that in the not too distant past, some of us protested on certain issues, but now, where are these voices?
Indeed. Where are they?
No, I'm asking you.
I
think you were you were a public voice at certain points before, unless things have evolved in a way where you think that most of the challenges are now.
Oh, I get that these days. Adrian, we haven't heard from you. How come you're not speaking out?
Yeah, tell us,
I have
Adrian.
been speaking out since I returned here as a young graduate at 22, and I have spoken out on most issues. I continue to speak out on issues. And what I say to people who ask me that is, okay, if you've heard my voice all these years, where's your voice? Where is your voice? Why do we devolve responsibility to other people to be the keepers of opinion? Don't you have an opinion? Don't you have an opinion?
Well, I'm doing this podcast.
Not you, no,
yes,
not
yes,
you.
yes,
I mean,
yes.
the people that, and I say, okay, that if Adrian is not speaking, that leaves space for you to speak. When last did I hear your voice? And that is the question of collective responsibility. That is the question of speaking truth to power. That is the question of dealing with issues of leadership and dissent and disagreement wherever you are. So you have a meeting with your principal, open your mouth and say, from this point of view, I think such and such and such.
The consequences, Adrian. I mean, there are consequences and severe
There are
consequences.
consequences that we are prepared to tolerate and live with. And if you want to live with the consequences of your silence, then don't blame somebody else. You want to live with you think there are no consequences to silence? There are. Just as there are consequences to speaking out. And this is why we need to have intelligent discussion and unbiased discussion. It's not easy, but there are ways to do it. And it has to be encouraged at the highest levels in the nation that we can have discussions where we fundamentally disagree. But we must have the conversations. And if you would permit me, and this is why I believe that people welcomed my presence in the Senate. Because I spoke as I saw it, irrespective of who was vexed or not vexed. I was accused of being on one side or the other from one week to the next. I really didn't give a damn. I decided that I was going to deal objectively with whatever issue was on the floor, and whoever didn't like it, too bad.
But when you have a system where power and financial resources are concentrated in the hands of a few, an opportunity, economic opportunity, scholarships, contracts are divvied out by a handful of persons based on their perception of where you stand.
But that is the consequence of your silence.
No, I think
Yes.
that is a result.
No, it's
silence is
the two things.
Silence
It's
is
the left.
imposed.
It's a
Silence
left
is
hand.
imposed on
No, silence is
persons by
accepted.
that fear.
No, silence is accepted. Silence becomes the default
Perhaps-
that we learn to
Perhaps
live
some
with.
people are comfortable enough in their financial circumstance that they are able to speak. But if I know that the scholarship for my child to Cuba or to Morocco may be compromised if I
Well, then you must
address-
live with the consequences of your silence. That is your
come on,
responsibility.
Adrian. It's more dynamic than that.
Is it really? But is it really? So you describe me as somebody who has spoken out on many issues and opposed and whatever, and yet here I am, highly autonomous and presumably successful without kissing up to anybody. So make up your mind.
Well, we will see. After the break, we will dig even deeper into some of the social issues, governance issues in our country. See you after the break.
Coming up after the break, more with our guest.
As a professional plumber installing many different brands of pumps, I'm beyond impressed with the Pedrolo line of products from Bryson Company. With a better performance ratio, energy efficient, less noise and turbulence. The Peugeot line of products is a game changer for all applications. Whether it is self-priming pumps, booster pumps, submersible pumps, deep well or drainage pumps, Bryson Company caters for all your needs. Don't hesitate to get yours now.
The benefits of a tropical solar water heating system, call 453-1868 in Castries or 454-6344 in Beaufort.
So what you've just described, sir,
yes,
is the battered wife syndrome, that a woman should stay and take licks from a man because she needs to feed her children. And you should not be promulgating that outlook on your program.
But we shouldn't be naive either. If I have
Well,
a child
take your
to
licks.
feed,
Well, take your
if
licks.
I have a child to send to school,
Yes.
it's important that the government does not victimize me. There's a bigger picture.
Well, take your licks, my boy, because
Well,
you choose to stay there.
I believe that we as a society could do better.
Of course we could do better.
And I do believe that we should challenge those in authority. And I speak here
I
not of
absolutely
SLP
agree.
or UWP or PNP. I speak about leadership.
I agree.
That they value
Or
what
the
the
val-
society
or the
creates.
values. The
I'm talking
values.
about economic value that
Yeah.
society creates.
Yes.
Should not be dispensed according to what is convenient for me, but as a right to take care of the society,
Agreed.
to take care of people.
Agreed.
And until that is done, I think people will continue to take
But that
Mumu
is not-
tablets
but-
and suffer in silence. Would you not
but-
say so?
Well, I don't think it's going to change based on the political structures that we ourselves have put in place. For example, we have built these, what I think are rightly described as little prime ministerial monarchies. We have allowed the ruling party across the Caribbean to have command of all of the strategic levers of the society. That has not happened because politicians have become greedier. That has happened because the rest of the society has stepped back. Your professional associations, your media, your chambers of commerce, your employers' federations, they've all stepped back.
Voluntarily?
Voluntarily. But of course, nobody put a gun to their heads, in cowardice maybe. But I remember during COVID, when I seemed to be very lonely in my quest for a better approach to the public response to COVID and the complete dismantling of transparency and accountability mechanisms, levers in the COVID legislation. And I appealed personally, and I will say it on camera, to the Chamber of Commerce and to the Bar Association, and none of them said anything. And that is where the strength of the democracy must come from. Your media, your professional associations, etc. People who band together, yes, with their sectoral interest, but who represent substantial value, substantial wealth, substantial influence in the society, having something within their agenda that is more than their bottom line. And that is where we have
Bottom line?
That is where we have relinquished our influence over the democratic process.
The bottom line ultimately is, how do I pay my workers? How do I keep the banks off my back? And in a society where so much of the economy is controlled by very few, these are realities that we have to grapple with. But I'll answer the question.
I'm back to the battered wife syndrome.
That
I'm back
is
to the
fine.
battered wife syndrome.
Probably realistically where we are. Because this is realistically where we are.
This is not how
But I will
it was.
I'll proffer an answer to you.
Yes.
If we look across the globe at those countries, those businesses, those societies which have done well, it's not because of the presence of resources. is not because of the presence of intellect, is not because of the presence exclusively of leadership, it's because of the presence of governance. And if we don't have good governance, we don't have strong institutions, we will never make progress. So whilst we speak in very abstract terms about those principles which governments and which chambers of commerce and different umbrella organizations should adhere to, if there's a lack of governance, if there is arbitrariness...
But governance is not a thing in itself.
I'll finish.
Governance is a result.
I'll finish.
Go ahead.
Because of the arbitrariness of decision-making, you see, Adrian, he didn't support me, I'll pay him back for his not support. Because this one didn't support me, I'll pay them back. This one went on television, my daughter not get no job.
But go to the next.
That is how it works.
Yes.
And guess what?
Yes.
You know why? Lack of governance.
Because
lack
there
of
is
strong institutions, lack of governance. And until
because
we
there is
have
no
strong
consequence.
institutions...
No. The reason why it happens is
and-
because there is no consequence for the people who are doling out that injustice. If there was a consequence, then people thought to themselves, boy, I can't do that. The Medical Association will never let me get away with that. I can't do that. That is one of them. They will rise up and they will give me problems.
Isn't that about governance?
It's about governance, but governance is not about government. Governance is a term that applies to all institutions.
That's what I'm speaking about. That's
to
exactly,
all institutions, right?
That's exactly what I'm speaking about.
So therefore, if there is no consequence to being a dictator, if there is no consequence to being a despot, then despots is what we will become.
So do you think despots will willingly give up their position of authority?
No, it's not willingly at all. It is the strength of other organizations bringing balance to the democracy. It's not automatic. It's not automatic. It is something that has to be fought for. It is something that has to be insisted upon. But you will not get that with a compromised media, with a compromised private sector organization, with a compromised population that is afraid to speak. You must speak. That is the cost of maintaining a democracy.
I want my water tank. I want my contract.
You want freeness. That's what you want. And you want the corrupt politician who's going to give you things that you don't deserve. That's what you want. Yes.
Adrian,
next question, please.
Are you living in this society?
I am certainly living in this society. So, and I am a victim from time to time of exactly that. But guess what? Two things. One, I learned not to depend on it, and number two, I learned to live it.
Not to
but
depend
how
on
did
it?
I get into that position, sir? How did I get into that position? By not depending on it in the first place. And that's what we have to decide. And when we are trading our daughters' morality instead of bringing the perpetrators of rape to court and incest to court, that's what we're doing. We're settling for the money. Well, we got to settle for a couple other things if we want to live in a civilized society. There is a price of silence. There is. And what we love is the contract that we don't really deserve, that we don't really want to compete for, that we don't want to get on merit. We want to get it because we're in the good books of the person who's handing out contracts.
Before we go into contracts, I just want to ask one quick question about silence. You, as an individual, at least for me, I like sleeping well at night, and decisions that I take, not all of them are perfect. I have to justify that I did it for the right reason. Shouldn't those in authority make decisions based on what is right, not what is politically convenient?
They should, but do not be naive about the nature of power. And it has been said, and said very accurately, that power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts, absolutely. If I hit you and you don't push back, I will hit you again when it suits me. That is human nature, my boy. So if I do you a wrong and you sit there in silence, and I will dismiss you as somebody who sits there in silence. And I will conduct myself accordingly. Okay, that's Stephen taken care of. Let me move on to the next victim that I need to silence in order to have my way. From birth, human nature is to have its way. It is built into us as animals. We want our way. The only reason we don't get our way is because there are rules, because there are consequences. We want to touch the hot pot, but when it burns us, we learn that we shouldn't do that. Okay? Of course, we all want to be dominant. We all want to have our way. It's human nature. But you add political power to that, and it becomes something quite sinister. And the only way that you can manage political power is to have equalizing influences in the society. When we gave that up, we gave up the democracy. And so now we have to start to regrow it. We need a truly independent media. We need autonomous institutions. We need transparency and accountability in the business of government.
We need governance. We need governance.
We need governance.
I see this.
We need good governance.
I see this to you, and I think that comes back to the point I made earlier about Sir Arthur Lewis spoke about the fundamental cure of poverty is education.
Yes.
I'd say the fundamental cure of poverty is governance. Because with
but
governance,
you don't get governance without education.
With governance, you could have all of the rest.
But hold on.
Yeah.
You don't get good governance like manna from heaven. You get good governance from an educated electorate who know what good governance looks like and feels like and sounds like. And so when your district representative is on the TV telling you what wonders he's doing for you, you must be able to say, I'm not really
Adrian,
feeling that, you know.
You know the number of PhDs who sit down and the number of people who've gone to very celebrated institutions who sit down and are the architects of the social and economic destruction that we've witnessed. They are the ones, the educated ones, not the guys sitting.
And your point is
that when you speak about education, is how the education is used. If you don't have the guardrails in organizations, in institutions, the Prime Minister's office. When I speak about prime ministers, I speak generally.
Generically, you don't need to excuse that.
No, it's important.
Well,
it's important.
We assume that.
That's why. So, if we don't have the structures in place, we don't have the governance, we will never achieve the outcomes that we want.
I agree with you, but governance is not a thing. Governance too has to be built. It has to be built. It is not a naturally occurring thing.
What if these guardrails are fundamentally and systematically eroded because I want to have the power to give her and him and she and
they
them.
will have to be fundamentally and systematically rebuilt. I didn't say it was easy, but I cannot dilute my response to suit what you want to hear. It's a long, hard road. Once you give up those things, it is very, very difficult to rebuild them. But you have the opportunity to start a conversation which does not excuse the absence of those things, but actually starts to address how we rebuild them. Because there was a time in my limited memory when we were far more vigilant about our democracy than we are now. And one of the problems is that, yes, I want a scholarship for my daughter, so I'm not going to say anything that will jeopardize that. That's one of our problems. I want the contract. I want the minister to like me. You know, I want to be invited to Government House. I want to go on the next tour to Taiwan.
Are we further away from our goals as a society today in 2026 than we were in 1996?
Yes, but fundamentally not because we're any less capable, but simply because the goals have become quite diluted. And I think that what was one of the stunning absences in the administration of the UWP, under Alan Chastney, was that lack of a national conversation about what needed to be done, about what is this administration going to achieve or not achieve. I think it was a fundamental absence. And you might say that conversation carried into the last campaign, if you don't mind me bringing that up, which was totally unfocused. Totally unfocused.
Well, I'm not right now in this job as a moderator or podcaster.
I'm not throwing it at you as a member of the party.
Specific, let's say, point of view on this matter. What I would say to
How
you,
convenient.
Though, what I would say to you, though, Adrian, is on the one hand you have a proposition which is forward-looking and ambitious and seeks to achieve that which can be accomplished through discipline, hard work, foresight. And another proposition which is, it is good enough now I will hold your hand, and I'll take care of your needs where you are. What is the better proposition?
Choosing between extremes is
Well, that is what we have.
never a good. Let me just finish. Let me just finish. Choosing between extremes is never a good thing. Ultimately, what we require, especially in these small societies, is balance. Is balance. We can describe what we want in the most glowing terms and believe that that's the elevated solution that we should all aspire to. Life is not so simple, as you very, very well know. We can describe the easier thing on the other side, and which appeals to the emotion and to the whatever, and that's not the best either. What we need is balance. It reminds me of the Marshall Montano song, balance. What we fundamentally need is to have all views contending. This is why the National Vision Commission was such an important thing to this country. And unfortunately, it was defunded by the same prime minister who started it. We do not have a
2014
sense,
to 2016.
somewhere around there. We do not have a sense of destination as a people. We do not have a sense of pathway as a people.
Do you think
and that's what I think is most fundamental to our existence, that development is a process. I would like to refer you to my lecture, Rethinking Our Development, which addresses some of those issues, the Pat Charles Memorial Lecture 2 years ago. What is this development thing supposed to deliver to us? If we had a more active discussion about that, I think that it would remove the business of aspiration from the manifesto to a national agenda. And the absence of a national agenda which has the consensus of the people behind it would bring a kind of political rationale to a lot of things. But that is not there.
That requires political maturity. And I'll go further.
It requires maturity across the board.
But there are a few issues, and perhaps you could bear with me, which I believe we should have national consensus on. Healthcare is one.
Yes.
Crime.
Or health.
Health.
Let's go a little bit more broad.
Health is one.
We should have a national consensus on health.
Is
yes,
one.
Crime.
And I think those are. I think generally speaking, development aspirations of the country.
Yeah, I think education is the most fundamental one.
Which I think, in fairness,
social security is also a very, very
education
fundamental.
has not been overly politicized. We have to admit.
I'm not concerned about the politicization.
Crime, health, social security, and education.
Yes.
I believe that there should be some baseline expectations that both political parties or all within the political arena could agree are the objects of the work of the people, and
but you see, but yes, we can agree on that fundamentally. But two things I would object to. One is the business of baseline, which is least common denominator, which is not going to serve us. We need to be more aspirational in our objectives, and finding the minimal common ground has been killing us for the last four decades. This small space that we all agree on, which really does not move the conversation, the agenda, the process, the outcome, we need to dispense with that. We need to be aspirational. We need to think about Saint Lucia as the best goddamn place on earth. And until we start to do that and have that as the fundamental aspiration of the entire nation, we are going to be compromising our own futures. And that's what we're doing right now, because we're settling. And your introductory remarks are very telling. People who are as capable as us ought not to settle for baseline anything. And until we change that fundamentally in our thinking, we're going to be accepting whatever the world hands us. That's our fundamental error.
Before we break, Adrian, what is really painful for me, having returned to Saint Lucia, is to see the enormous talent of our people, how hard working many of our people are, how impressive they become when they leave these shows, how celebrated they are by others. But there's a malaise, constriction,
yes,
which prevents those very persons
yes.
in this society
yes.
from achieving
And
their
that's not a
God.
and that's not a political problem.
What is it then?
That is a societal problem. And it runs very deep into who we are, where we have come from, and how we manage individual aspiration versus collective aspiration. It's the crab in the barrel syndrome. It's residual to things that we have not dealt with, we have not addressed. It is the lack of a national consensus about our own achievements. It is a easy common denominator, baseline approach to so many things. Because if we agree that this is the summit, then we will admire people who start to climb.
Are we self-loathing?
We are self-loathing. We are. But it can be fixed. If we agree that this is the summit and we're all going there, then we will learn about the business of building heroes. We will learn the business of celebrating success. We will learn not to be envious of those who are a little higher up the mountain, because we too are going to that summit. And again, fundamental national conversations about how we move the entire nation. But if I think, and I continue to think, that your progress is at my expense, which is a conversation that started here in the 80s, all right, and has not been redressed. That, oh, you see Mr. Stephen there, the only reason he's going up the ladder is because he's exploiting you. And your own going up the ladder has nothing to do with your own endeavor and your own worth and your discipline and your right. It has to do with the fact that somebody's exploiting you constantly, irrevocably. And that's the doldrum into which we settled, and we stopped talking about the summit. So all of us are aspiring to be somewhere surviving at the bottom of the mountain. And what that has done to us as a nation is made us believe that the summit is for someone else.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the commanding heights of this economy, what we have done
is given it away.
Absolutely. And we have ceased to value
we no longer
the things that even those people value most. We have, for example, and this is long-seated, this is deep-seated, we have believed that we have no resources. You know, we have no resources. We're a poor country with no resources. And yet you have people who want to come and sit on your beach and watch your sunset and feel your breeze and admire your mountains. And you yourself do not value those things as the ultimate product, the ultimate resource, which has to do with human happiness, which has to do with human fulfillment, which has to do with joy.
You can't do it on an empty stomach.
That's the sort of tautology that is killing us, Mr. Stephen.
I would say this.
And you need to let it go.
I say tongue in cheek, but it's reality. And I'll say this.
But our stomachs are not empty.
I'll say this to you.
Wait. No, I can't let you get away because our stomachs are not empty. They may be full of the wrong things, which is a kind of recklessness we have about our own health and well-being. But our stomachs are not empty, by and large.
You make a powerful point.
I hope
Whilst
so.
we are fighting with each other,
yes,
dragging each other down,
yes,
we've handed the country and the commanding heights of the country to those who are not us.
This is true.
But guess what? It's facilitated by those we elect, because they are the ones drinking and eating and partying and brokering deals.
Yeah, but that is a reflection of
who are
us.
not
That is not just a reflection of them. That is a reflection of us. And to place the blame squarely on the shoulders of 12 or 17 or 15 people as if they are the sole criminals in the entire society is too simplistic to be true. And as you said, we elected them. And we elected them because we ourselves failed to go and offer ourselves for election. Some of us fail to do so. We're talking generically. And that's part of the problem. Me, I'm not going in that. You must be mad. Next thing, I can't pay my mortgage. And you come back to the same price of silence.
So this is where we are. We've come a long way. We have a longer journey to fulfill. When you come back from this break, we will speak about the next phase of our journey.
The 1461 podcast is brought to you by Bryson Company Limited in partnership with IBS, Harbor Club, Tropical Solar, and 1461 Enterprise, distributors of the world's best coffee. For inquiries, contact us at sales@1461.lc or 717-9306.
Welcome back. So I'm going to propose a rather unscientific assessment of where we are as a country. Other than Guyana, which is blessed with huge endowments of hydrocarbons, doing well, growing rapidly, reducing poverty, key economic, social indicators improving. Jamaica, and you have to credit Wholeness, has done a remarkable job on crime and security. The economy is doing a lot better. The level of indebtedness in Jamaica, which was a key constraint for development, they're showing not only signs, but has that structural transformation as well underway. The challenges we face here in Saint Lucia are not unique. See the same malaise in Trinidad, St. Vincent, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts. In fact, I would suggest to you that that malaise is also seen in some parts of Europe. But I think for us, it's perhaps even more acute because we see and we live those realities. If you were to propose some of the key solutions, we spoke about governance, we spoke about self-loathing and the need for us to empower ourselves, to celebrate our successes, to assist each other as another community. We spoke about the need for government to allocate resources not based on what is politically convenient, but what is strategically and morally right. What are the other ingredients to that sauce which are required for us to move forward as a country?
Sorry, I was having a flashback to a prime minister with whom I had a conversation some years ago. And I said, if you are re-elected, borrow as much money as you can and spend it on education. And I would say the same thing today. Because we have wonderful edifices of development which we don't appreciate, maintain, populate, sustain, because we are still in a subconscious mindset that things will fall apart. And I don't know if you know the African writer, Augier, Achebe.
Nigerian.
Right. Things fall apart. There seems to be an expectation in Saint Lucia that things will not last. And so we do not spend much time or energy trying to preserve the good things that we have. And for me, the most painful manifestation of that is the way we litter our country. I think that speaks deeply to our mindset about how we love, coexist, appreciate, value our own existence within this 238 square miles. When I am driving at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm behind a busload of students and I see, and I will leave out the brand for now, chicken boxes being thrown out of the side of minivans onto the road, I know that things are bad. Because at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, having spent, what is it, $20-something thousand per student we spend on education, and secondary school students are throwing litter out of the side of a minivan onto the street. We have not addressed fundamental issues of who we are and where we live and how much we care about the place in which we live and by extension ourselves. And that I find extremely worrisome because it means that everything else is really just window dressing. If we have not brought ourselves to the point as a nation where we cannot conceive of littering our own home, then all of this development stuff is wasted. And so I will go back to the question of education, broadly defined, which establishes for us who we are, what we want, where we're going, where do we live, and how do we not survive, but prosper in the environment which time and circumstances handed to us. This is the most important 238 square miles on Earth. Mm-hmm. And that is how every Saint Lucian should feel about Saint Lucia.
Can I ask a question? We have done a reasonable job in the reading, writing, arithmetic.
Have we really? Well, have we really?
We could argue, but I think the point I'm making is a deeper one than that. But have we, through the educational process, made appreciation of ourselves, a collective self-esteem, accountability?
No, we have not.
You know, I got my younger son's report card 2 days ago, and I was just really impressed. Ability to work with others, follows rules, responds to challenges in an emotionally appropriate way. That is what development is about. It's not about if I know calculus. It's about how, when I go to work, how
it's about work both, with, of course. It's about
both of them. I'm simplifying, but yes. You could know calculus.
At what age?
You could know calculus through and through.
Yes.
If you go to the office and you can't work with your colleagues,
Agreed.
You go nowhere.
Yes.
And these are the things I believe are fundamental, not how sophisticated your understanding of math may be, but the rudiments, respect for each other, being able to solve challenges in a manner which seeks to advance the objective of the conversation, not being vindictive, accept
or victim,
or being a victim,
which is the other side of the same coin. So yes, I agree with you.
Have we done enough of that?
No.
Is it part of our
I don't know that it's ever enough, but it is the area in which we need to invest more. That the education process should be a holistic thing, preparing us to be the best individuals that we can be. That would speak to the emphasis on creativity, on curiosity, on problem solving, which I don't think we're doing a great job with.
Absolutely not.
So children are getting better at telling you what you have taught them, but they're not getting better at teaching themselves.
Or analyzing.
And well, that requires the analytical skills, and that feeds into the political process. And it is a sinister thing, which is not unique to Saint Lucia, which speaks to how technology, for example, is used appropriately for self-development as opposed to us being consumers of other people's content, which is a great and grave danger that we are now facing. I spoke to a young man just last week, and he tells me, I told him, check your screen time. And it's 9 hours a day, consuming other people's content.
Not producing anything.
Not producing anything, which maybe is okay at his age, but you are consuming consciously or subconsciously other people's content. And the great illusion is that content has no agency or has no agenda of its own. But what it is doing is building us into very passive whereas, as you said, people as capable and as confident as we are should be generating our own content for our own purposes.
Final question, Mr. Adrian Augier. We've had a very honest discussion about the country, challenges that we face. It hasn't been very optimistic, if we have to be honest. What is your view? 10 years from now, current direction of travel, where are we as a country and as our people?
And you were saying it wasn't optimistic before.
10 years from now, current direction of travel.
Yeah.
Where do we end up?
Not better off.
Give me some complexion to that statement.
Fair enough. I believe that there are certain conversations which need to change fundamentally. We need to shift, for example, from employment to self-determination in our mindset. I don't know about everybody else, but I know that I would not exchange working for myself for any reason. The idea that we are more than employees, I think, requires a fundamental shift in our thinking. We are living in a bounce and draw society, which is extremely worrisome to, hazard a guess, 75% of employers in this country. We have a generation of workers who are not invested in the future, but in the present. Maybe that is our old school optimism that we are actually on a continuum towards some greater goal, but a lot of younger people are not seeing what that greater goal, what that destination is, what that journey means to them, and how they are part of a larger national objective. That is something that we need to address. So I would like us to move from conversations about employment to conversations about ownership. I would like us to move from our discussions about reducing poverty to actually inducing wealth. We have to start thinking of ourselves as people who can generate wealth and stop the deficit politics, stop the deficit thinking that there's never going to be enough, that there's never enough to start with. We are wasting resources. We are undervaluing resources. We are deploying resources in senseless ways. I had a conversation yesterday with a young lady who is in a position to influence thinking. And I said, surely we can have a discussion about not how we spend more, but how we spend more effectively, more efficiently, and how every dollar has a purpose. Because we cannot be just doing the same things over and over again without an expectation of improvement. And improvement is broadly defined as the greatest good for the greatest many, right? There's a whole heap of money being spent in this country that does not have that sort of agenda and is deliberately maintaining a mediocrity, a status quo, which is not based on global best practice, for example. Let's spend the money by all means, but let's spend it to achieve global best practice. And as I said, until we have a collective consciousness about us at the summit of our possibilities, us at the center of our universe, us as the most important 238 square miles on this planet, we're not going to have that sort of energy that moves our thinking fundamentally forward. And so I was describing again to a young lady who's within my sphere of activity and saying, in my mind, my little mantra is inviting challenge, embracing change. Not merely a sort of peaceful coexistence. Peaceful coexistence is not working for us. It's not going to work for us. Not in today's global environment. We have to be inviting challenge. We have to be seeking challenge. We have to be embracing change, because change is what there is. And attempting or pretending to maintain a status quo kind of thinking or making do, or it's just not going to work for us. That agenda has to be actively pursued. So it's not about achieving what we achieved last year. It's about achieving 10% more 10% more efficiency, more productivity, more output, more intelligence. And I would really like to see the agenda of the country shift in that direction, where we're not afraid of change, where we're not afraid of different, where we're not afraid of diversity. We're actually embracing it and saying, you know what? Let's not think, oh, that's what we did last year. Let's do it again because that's safe and that's easy. Let's think about, we did that last year, we achieved. And this is why matrix and measurement is important. Metrics and measurement is important. That if we achieved X dollars per school place, whatever, that we ought to be now looking to say, okay, how do we better that? How do we measure ourselves? Not against our neighbors, but against world best practice, global best practice, which will set a standard for us that to aspire to work towards, to be hardworking and disciplined about reduction of poverty, improvements in education, better living standards. We have a major housing deficit in this country. Major housing deficit. What are we doing about it?
What are we doing about a lot of things?
Yes.
But on that bombshell,
Yes.
we have to wrap this show.
Yes.
Adrian Augier, thank you so very much for a very candid, honest exchange. I hope to have you again on the show as we address some of the
Inevitable.
challenges that we face. But I like the end, optimistic. Let us be agents for our own social and economic progress.
Because nobody else will.
'Cause
Nobody
no one
else
else
will.
will.
Nobody else will.
With that, thank you so much for joining us on the 1461 podcast. See you soon.
This has been the 1461 podcast. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Spotify. The Airborne Academy, audio partners of the 1461 podcast. Flower arrangement by the Dreamy Group.